Evening slips into Hebden Bridge Railway Station, the way it always does. Slowly, without asking permission. The old speaker crackles overhead, tired of repeating itself. Due to a signal failure earlier on the line, services are currently experiencing significant delays. No one looks up anymore. The words have lost their weight. Hannah Collins exhales a long, careful breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. It leaves her chest like something finally letting go. She lowers herself onto a wooden bench, the paint worn thin by decades of waiting. Her coat stays buttoned. Her bag rests heavy in her lap, as if it's carrying more than just her belongings. As if it already knows what today has taken out of her. All she can think is, I just want to go home. Not rest, not sleep. Just home, the one place where she won't have to explain the look on her face to anyone. Above the platform, the clock ticks, too loud in the quiet. Minutes stretch. The hills beyond the station darken, shadows settling into the valleys. Time behaves differently here, in places like this. A few seats away, Tom Harris waits too. Still, unhurried, watching the tracks like he isn't expecting them to change their mind anytime soon. This small stone station, tucked between hills and held together by patience, seems to pause everyone inside it. As if it's decided to keep them here. Just long enough for something neither of them planned to find. Hannah hadn't planned on sitting next to anyone. But when the waiting room fills and the cold starts pushing people indoors, she shifts her bag to the floor and slides along the bench without thinking. It's easier than standing. Easier than explaining she doesn't want company but doesn't want to be alone either. Tom notices the movement and hesitates for half a second before sitting down. He quietly settles at the far end, careful to keep his space. They sit like that for a while, two strangers sharing a bench, not sharing anything else. Hannah keeps her coat on. She hasn't taken it off since she left the hospital. The smell is still there, faint but unmistakable, clinging to the fabric. She wonders if everyone else can sense it too. Her phone lights up in her hand. Then fades. No messages. No updates. She slips it back into her pocket and stares at the floor instead. The doctor's voice keeps replaying in her head, soft, steady, practiced. The kind of voice meant to cushion bad news. We'll take it day by day. Let's see how she responds. It's too early to say. Hannah presses her lips together. She hasn't cried, not yet. Crying would mean admitting how scared she is, and she doesn't feel ready to let that happen on a cold station bench. Tom watches the departure board flicker and change again. He already knows it won't help. He missed his earlier connection, not because he was late, but because he didn't move when the doors opened. He'd stood there, bag in hand, watching people hurry past him, and thought, not yet. The job he left behind had stopped feeling like his. The flat felt too quiet and too loud at the same time. Leaving didn't feel brave, it just felt necessary. Looks like we're stuck for a bit, Tom says eventually, glancing at the board. Hannah nods. Seems so. Her voice sounds flatter than she expects. A few minutes pass. Maybe more. Time is doing that strange thing again, stretching without warning. Signal problems, Tom adds. They always say it'll be sorted shortly. Hannah exhales, something close to a laugh escaping before she can stop it. Shortly doesn't mean anything, does it? Tom smiles, not wide, just enough. Never does. The silence that follows feels different now. Softer, less empty. Hannah stares at the floor, then hears herself speak before she's fully decided to. "I've just come from the hospital." The words land heavier than she expects. Tom turns towards her, not sharply, not with alarm. Just enough to show he's listening. "I'm sorry," he says. And he means it. She nods, swallowing hard. Yeah. That's all she can manage. But something in her chest loosens anyway, just slightly. Because for the first time today, she doesn't feel invisible with it. Tom looks back at the tracks, his voice quieter now. "I'm heading away from somewhere," he says. "Thought I'd be gone already." Hannah glances at him then. Really looks. "And you're still here?" "Yeah," he says. "Seems that way." They sit there together, the station humming softly around them, two people delayed, both carrying endings they didn't plan for. Neither of them knows it yet. But this conversation, this accidental pause in Hebden Bridge, is already beginning to change the shape of the night. The board changes again. Not in a helpful way, just enough to remind them that nothing is settled. Minutes slide into something heavier. Time stops behaving properly. The station hums, heaters clicking, footsteps echoing, doors sighing open and shut. Hannah stands first, stretching her stiff legs. The cold has found its way through the gaps in the building, creeping up from the floor. "I'm just going to get some air," she says, more to herself than to Tom. He nods. Yeah. Probably a good idea. Outside, the platform is quiet. The hills beyond the tracks are barely visible now, just dark shapes against the sky. The rails glint faintly under the lights, stretching away into places that feel far removed from this pause. Tom joins her after a moment, hands shoved into his pockets. They don't speak right away. Being outside feels easier somehow, less like they're stuck, more like they've stepped into a different version of the wait. When the cold finally bites through Hannah's coat, Tom gestures back towards the waiting room. "Would you like a coffee?" He asks. It's not great, but it's warm. She hesitates, then nods. "That'd be nice, thanks." He doesn't make a thing of it. Just disappears for a minute and comes back with two paper cups, one held carefully so it doesn't spill. She wraps her hands around the warmth like it's something she's allowed to keep. "Thank you," she says quietly. They sit again, closer this time. Not touching, but not guarding the space between them either. The conversation drifts along the surface at first. Complains about trains, about delays, about how stations always feel colder than they should. Then Hannah stares into her cup and says quietly, "I didn't think I'd talk about it today." Tom doesn't ask what it is. He just waits. "I went to see my mom," she continues. "Hospital visit. She's not getting better." The words leave her mouth carefully, like they might break if she says them too loudly. Tom nods once. "That's hard," he says. Simple, honest. She lets out a breath that shakes. "Everyone keeps telling me to be positive." "Yeah," he says softly. "They do that." It's exhausting, Hannah admits. Holding it together for everyone else. The words hang between them, heavy and fragile. Hannah wraps her hands around the cup again, tracing the warmth as if it could steady her. Tom doesn't speak. He looks down at the floor, fidgeting with the edge of his sleeve, then lifts the cup to take a slow sip. The silence stretches, not uncomfortable, but deliberate. It gives the moment weight, lets Hannah's exhaustion settle into the air, and shows that Tom isn't just reacting, he's thinking, holding his own carefully guarded story behind his quiet eyes. After a long moment, he shifts slightly on the bench, clears his throat softly, and finally lets the words out. "I left a job today," he says. "Packed my desk. Didn't say much to anyone." Hannah looks up. "Were you there long?" "Long enough to forget when I started wanting to leave." He gives a small, tired smile. "I don't actually know where I'm going. Just, not there anymore." Something settles between them then. Not sadness exactly. Understanding. They don't rush to fill the silence. They let it sit, solid and shared. Hannah realizes something that surprises her. She feels safe here. Not fixed, not comforted in any grand way. Just safe enough to be honest. That's the twist. Not a revelation, not a confession. Just the quiet miracle of saying things out loud to someone who has no claim on your future. Someone who will take your words, hold them gently, and then let you go. Outside, the board changes again. Still no certainty. But on that bench, between two paper cups and a station that refuses to hurry, Hannah and Tom are no longer just waiting. They're sharing something they didn't know they needed to find. They sit there, the soft hum of the station around them, the chill from the platform still lingering at the edges of the room. Hannah's hands curl tighter around her cup, the warmth barely reaching her chest. Finally, almost before she realizes she's saying it, the words slip out. "I don't know how to be strong for someone who's fading." Her voice breaks, quiet but sharp enough to echo in the small waiting room. A few heads turn, but she barely notices. The moment is hers. And somehow, it isn't lonely anymore. Tom stays still for a heartbeat longer than feels comfortable, then leans back slightly, letting the silence stretch just enough. "You don't have to be strong," he says quietly. "You just have to be there, that's enough." She looks at him, startled, her eyes raw. Not pity, not judgment, just understanding. He shifts slightly, meeting her gaze. "I know what it's like," he says. "I once waited in a station like this. Years ago. I'd lost someone, and I didn't know how to keep going. And then I spoke to a stranger. Someone who didn't owe me anything. But they listened. That night, they helped me survive it." Hannah's lips part. She doesn't speak, because no words seem enough. She simply lets the moment wash over her, the warmth, the quiet, the strange miracle of being held by someone who isn't family, isn't expected, isn't part of her life beyond this evening. And then it hits them both. Slowly, softly. This delay, this pause in Hebden Bridge, isn't empty. It isn't just a train running late. It's carrying something they didn't know they needed. Hannah exhales, a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding all evening. Tom watches her, his own chest lighter than it has been in weeks. Outside, the board flickers again. The train will come eventually. But for now, for this small, fragile stretch of time, the station has given them something rare. A shared moment that isn't planned, isn't expected, but will stay with them both long after the wheels start turning again. The announcement finally changes. The train is arriving. Hannah's chest tightens, relief mixed with sadness. They've shared hours in this quiet, waiting room world, and now it's time to step back into their separate lives. No numbers exchanged, no names revealed, no promises made. Just a quiet, mutual understanding, held in the space between two paper cups and the hum of the station. Hannah rises first, her bag heavy in her hand, coat buttoned tightly as if it could hold all the pieces of herself together. She pauses at the carriage door, glancing back at Tom. Her eyes are quiet, tired, carrying the weight of a mother she can't fix, of nights spent pacing and hoping. "I suppose we should go," she says softly, her voice trembling just enough to betray everything she's been holding in. "We're leaving it all here, aren't we? The waiting, the fear, everything we've carried." Tom shifts, his fingers curling around the strap of his bag. He knows that feeling. He's leaving behind a life he built, a job that felt like part of him, a city that he thought he belonged in. The pause stretches between them, heavy, almost sacred. It isn't awkward. It's a quiet understanding. Hannah takes a tentative step closer. "It's strange," she whispers, almost to herself. "You meet someone for a few hours, and it's like we've carried it together. Even for a little while, it doesn't feel so heavy." Tom lets out a breath, the smallest of smiles brushing his lips. "Yeah," he says quietly. "It does make a difference, doesn't it?" For a long moment, neither moves. And then slowly, carefully, they step into the carriage. Not side by side, but close enough that the space between them feels warmer than it should. Two people, leaving pieces of their hearts behind on a station bench in Hebden Bridge, carrying the rest forward with a little less weight. The train lurches forward. Hannah presses her hand against the window, watching the hills and the station fade into the darkness. She feels lighter, not whole, not healed, but held, somehow, by a connection she never expected. Tom watches the platform shrink behind them, the stone building fading into the night, the hills and rails slipping quietly out of view. A tug of something tight and familiar grips him, memories of long days spent at that office, the city streets he'd wandered, the life he thought he belonged to. He realizes he's leaving more than a place, he's leaving pieces of himself. He wasn't ready to let go of old routines and half-forgotten dreams that lingered in the corners of the station, the smell of the platform, the echo of footsteps he will never hear again. And yet, as the train carries them forward, he feels something else too, lighter, strangely unburdened. That quiet conversation, the small, unexpected sharing of fears and burdens with Hannah, will stay with him far longer than the city or the job ever could. It will travel with him, a reminder that even in the act of leaving, some connections can quietly carry you through. And then, slowly, inevitably, time moves again. Sometimes, the journey slows down, not because we're meant to stop, but because life wants us to notice something we didn't even know we were carrying. Have you ever met someone, just for a moment, who made the weight you were holding feel a little lighter? Someone who didn't owe you anything, but gave you a piece of themselves anyway? If that has ever happened to you, share your story in the comments. And if moments like this speak to your heart, stay with us. We have more stories that remind us how unexpectedly kind the world can be.